My name's Akhil. I'm the CEO of Green Story. And without any further ado, I'd like to pass it on to Bronte to give a brief introduction to herself and Earthletica, and then we'll go on to the interview itself. Bronte.
Thank you, Akil. My name is Bronte Campbell. I am an Olympic swimmer. I just finished competing at my fourth Olympics in Paris, and I'm also the co-founder and co-CEO of Earthletica, which is a sustainable activewear company where we look to get quality, innovation, and sustainability all together in the world's best activewear you've ever had in your life, but also sustainably made.
Fantastic. Well, very excited to have you here, Bronte. So let me ask a little bit about your story, right? So, an Olympic athlete, and you've started an amazing brand with Athletica. So, can you tell me a little bit about the genesis of it? How did your personal experiences shape the vision behind the brand, and what really inspired you to start Athletica?
Yeah, it's I've grown up in activewear. I wear it every single day. It's pretty much my uniform. When you're an athlete, that's what you wear to work out. And so I wasn't really aware until a few years ago how much new plastic there is in activewear, how much virgin plastic is created. There's 42 million tons a year, which is an astronomical amount. So I was sort of always looking around for more sustainable options. It's something that's a really dear value to me. So um, I was always looking for that, and I couldn't find something that was of the quality that I needed to be able to complete Olympic workouts, but that was also with sustainability at its core. And like there's a few brands that might do one or two pieces here and there, but there was no one that I found that was doing every single piece. So you just knew that it was looked after. It's really that sort of peace of mind knowing that a brand's really passionate about this space and doing everything that they can. And so that was when I sort of got together with Chris and Libby, my two other business partners, and moved into creating product. That was Chris and Libby were on that journey for quite a few years before I ended up joining them. So it was really great to join them at a point where they'd done a lot of research. Um, I was also looking at this from, I was training for the Olympics, but I was also working at EY, which is a big global consulting firm, and looking at sustainability as this really big issue for big businesses to solve. And seeing how clunky and difficult that could be when you don't have a sustainable supply chain from the start, when you don't have sustainable stock practices from the start, when you don't have sustainability at the beginning of product design, how difficult it is to retrofit it onto a really big business and then try and move that business towards sustainability is sort of like a 10, 15-year project. And so when I met up with Chris and Libby, this was amazing because it's something that aligns with like my heart in terms of, yes, I want to make something that's better for the planet. But it also aligned with my head of like, this is a better way to build a sustainable business than to try and pivot some older business round to being sustainable, because that's a really, really slow pivot.
That's a great point. And it is like interesting that the quality standards you're asking for is Olympic level, right? It should kind of withstand an Olympic workout. So how did that journey kind of go from concept to launch for the brand, right? Because you're balancing two very difficult things, like extremely high quality with sustainability as well through all of this.
Yeah, and I really think it's not fair for our customers and consumers to have to choose between sustainability and quality. And like I really believe that quality is part of sustainability. So creating something that somebody loves, that is comfortable, that's high quality, that's going to last for a long time, that they're going to use over and over again, and doesn't just get thrown away and ends up in landfill, that is still part of the mission. It's part of making clothing and only clothing that people want to wear. She's almost in it more than I am. And like I wear my activewear when I go to the gym, but I'm in the pool most of the time when I'm working out. She's like there every single day. So I'm really passionate about that. And I think that quality is also part of sustainability, because if you've got something that you wear all the time, that you wear for a long time, that you really love, that makes you feel good, that's comfortable and high quality and gets you through your workouts, it's also a form of sustainability. If you buy activewear that isn't up to standard, you're not going to wear it, you're going to throw it away, it's just going to end up in landfill. So the quality piece for us is is of such high importance because it not only is something that we need for ourselves to get through a workout. Both myself and my co-founder Libby, who is head of product, are meticulous about the quality that we need in our products, and the workouts that we're putting them through is so intense that we know if it can stand up to that, it'll be good for everyone. But it's also part of the sustainability offering for us. So we really do believe that you shouldn't have to choose between the two. And our vision is to create a world where innovation, sustainability, and quality can exist together without compromise. And that's really what we're here to do with Earthletica, is prove that you can do that.
That's great. And what's interesting is just like you kind of went beyond the norm when it comes to quality with the testing and the preparation that you talked about. You've also done that in terms of sustainability. Specifically, you've invested in measures like doing a full life cycle assessment with us at Green Story and really kind of looked really deep into your supply chain. So can you tell me a little bit more about why it was important for you to go that extra mile, or it's the extra 10 miles? To do that?
Yeah, it's really important for us that we use Green Story and leverage that life cycle assessment. It's so important to be able to quantify what you're doing, and sustainability can mean so many different things, and it can be such a hard thing to pin down. And there's so many different aspects of it. There's so many different areas that you could work in it, and I think it can be quite overwhelming when you step into that world and you say, well, I'm not able to do every single piece. For instance, like I can't change the diesel that's getting used on the ships that's bringing the products across. Like that's not in my control. But what can I do? So what's the bit that we can do now that's better than before? And that's a value of our company, is raise the bar. So whatever the industry is doing, let's just do better than that. And then as soon as we've been able to do that, let's keep doing better. And so to be able to do these assessments and measure what you're doing is so important for that continuous improvement and that growth mindset, and bringing that to the business, where you're not letting the fact that the first step isn't where you want to be stop you from starting. So you've really got to start and then see where you go from there. And like with the supply chain and being able to assess your actual impact, it just means that you can give customers a lot more trust in you as well, because there's a lot of brands that have eco branding or have eco credentials that don't really mean as much. Whereas this is such a great way to quantify it, both for ourselves and our goal setting and how we look at that continuous improvement, but then also for our customers as well, to see that, hey, this product recycled 6 PET bottles, and it's better than using those virgin synthetic materials that we were talking about before.
Fantastic. So kind of moving on, when it comes to the sustainability aspect, again, a big part of or a big stumbling point I think a lot of companies have is scalability when it comes to really looking at that precision in terms of quality and maintaining sustainability and scaling up as your brand. And Earthletica has grown and has scaled up. So how have you kind of achieved that balance?
Yeah, it's a really hard balance to find, and like we've still got a lot of scale in front of us as well. So we'll continue grappling with this as we grow. But I mean, the main important thing is that we've designed it into the start of our business. So designed it into how we think about stock practices, which then leads into like our business plan. Because sustainability is at the core of our business. It's what we base our decisions on. It's not like one pillar under everything. It's sort of like the foundational stone that we can then build everything on top of and build in a way that is sustainable. And the main thing is just having really good suppliers, honestly. Like suppliers that you build a good relationship with, that you trust, that you've visited, you know how they operate, and you know what fabrics they're using, and really having like we're an athletic wear business, so fabric is the very core of what we do. So building those really strong relationships with suppliers that are able to scale with us is really important, and has been what we've spent sort of the last 3 years doing, and it'll continue to be more important as we continue to grow.
Right, and supplies are a key part to your transparency and the life cycle assessment that you've done as well. And one of the things that you've done, again, an extraordinary step, is you've surfaced these product level footprints with our Green Story platform on your websites, and you've made it extremely transparent to your customers. So what's been kind of the response to that from your target audience, and uh, what insights have you gained from presenting this level of transparency to the world?
It's been so brilliant to use Green Story to show that we sort of put our money where our mouth is. It's not just all talk. It's brilliant to have it verified by someone who's outside of the company, because there is a lot of ego claims that sort of get thrown around. And from our customers, they just really have this real peace of mind that we're doing what we say we're doing. That someone else has looked into it, that someone else has done an assessment on it, because as a consumer looking at a brand, there's no way that I'm going to be able to dig into their supply chain and see what's happening. Like, it's just not possible for me when I'm looking at a brand, and it's not something that I think brand consumers should have to do when they're looking to purchase. So with Green Story, we've been able to do that work for them and sort of put their mind at ease before they even come to purchase.
Fantastic. And nothing to hide, right? You're basically highlighting everything you can.
Yeah, exactly. Like, nothing to hide. And like I said before, like, it's sort of about progress over perfection, and it's just continually raising that bar. And we're very clear about this on our website, is like, this is how much recycled material we get to use. This is like the small amount of virgin synthetic that we still continue to use, and we're looking to get rid of all of that in the future. But it's about quantifying that and showing people what the impact is now, and then continuing to make that to make those steps forwards. And like, in a year or two, I don't think we'll recognize where we've got to, because the garment technology is just evolving so fast. We're going to be able to do certain incredible things, but it's also about starting at some point. You know, you got to like jump in and start. They always say with new businesses, like, if you're 100% where you wanted to be, you've sort of left it too late to begin. And like, we're so uncompromising with the quality for the garments and the sustainability standards that we hold, that it took us a long time to get product to market, because we spent so long making sure that it held up to scrutiny. And um, there's there is nothing to hide. We shouldn't be afraid of saying what we're doing well and what we would like to do better, because we're all sort of on this journey together as consumers and also as an industry. Like, looking around the industry and being able to see brands that have done it really well in the past and show that they weren't perfect, but they were thinking about ways to become better, and they were aware that they weren't perfect. I think perfectionism can really get in the way of progress a lot of the time.
Yeah, and when it comes to sustainability, there is no perfect, right? It's all that process, and that's extraordinary that you already absorbed that as a young brand into your DNA, and that's a great mindset that you have, which actually brings me to my next question. You are an Olympic gold medalist. It requires an extraordinary mindset to do that, and a set of values that really fuel this. So, can you tell me a little bit more about that journey? What were the values that fueled your success, and how did those then influence the journey at Earthletica in building that brand?
Yeah, it's really funny because it's actually really similar in a lot of ways. So I had a dream when I was 7 years old that I wanted to go to the Olympics, and at the time I was living in Malawi in Africa, which is a really small nation. There's not a lot of swimmers that come from there. I ended up moving to Australia a year later, and started swimming straight away with this like goal in my mind that this was going to happen for me. Like, the chances of going to an Olympic Games are so small. It's like 0.1% or something. It's really, it's not a very likely thing that can happen. But what that really taught me was it's really important to dream big and just go chase after those goals, because you have no idea what's going to happen along the way. And the journey wasn't a straight path. It wasn't like I dreamt it when I was 7 and then I qualified for my first Olympics when I was 17. But those 10 years, there was like injury, there was illness, there was times I had to step away from the sport and do rehab. And it wasn't this lovely straight line like I imagined when I was 7. But I did manage to make my first team when I was 17, and that was the 2012 Olympics. And since then, it's been about constant improvement. So even when you get the weird thing about sport is, even when you get to the top, even when you achieve your goal, there's always the next thing. So you go to your first Olympics and it's like, okay, cool. Well, let's try go to a world championship. And then you win a medal at a world championship. Like, hey, can I win a medal at a Commonwealth Games? Can I win a medal at an Olympics? And you achieve those things, and there's always something more to be chasing. And you have to be looking for constant ways to improve, even just to maintain your standard, let alone continually improving your standard, because you're working with your body that's getting injured and all these other things are happening. And so in some ways it's very similar to running a business, because a business is sort of like this alive organism that like requires your attention all the time, and there's other forces acting on it, and you're gonna have to change your plan and like constantly look for those ways to continually innovate. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'm taking from sport into Earthletica, is that value that we brought across from my swimming days was raise the bar. So just constantly like raising the bar in every area that you possibly can. For instance, this last Olympic prep that I did, I have a lot of injuries. I've been competing with injuries for over 8 years. But I really wanted to raise the bar in terms of my recovery. So thinking about new ways that I could do that. And one of the best ways for me to do that was through a lot of breath work and prioritizing that and making sure I made time for that. And what's so crazy about that is when you're an athlete, you've only got two resources to spend, and that's time and energy. And what was so brilliant about that is that I only had to really give time to it. Like breath work is not something that like saps your energy resources later on. So it was a really good investment of my time to then enhance my recovery later on and build back up those energy reserves. So you're sort of constantly looking for these tiny little 1%ers. So once you have that breakthrough and you reach the elite level, it's all about the tiny little things. But what's also so applicable to business is, in order to get to the place where 1% matters, you have to do the 90% underneath. And that's the hard stuff. You know, like that's like the ground basis, like building stuff. That's the stuff that we're doing at Earthletica now, is building it to make sure that all the supply chain works really well, all the operations work really well, all the product works really well. Okay, great. And then as you scale, those things become harder as well. So I think that really adaptable mindset that I learned in sport, and learning not to take setbacks as the end of the road has been really important for me.
That's fantastic. And I'm assuming that's what's subsumed into your company's culture as well, that adaptability, looking for those improvements wherever you can, that extra 1%, as well as setting up the rest of the 90%.
Yeah, you do the hard work for the 90%, and then you can keep looking for the 1% and know that they're out there and you're always going to find them.
Fantastic. And can you tell me a little bit more about the challenges that you faced in building the brand? As you rightly mentioned, the Olympic journey is never a straight line, and people think the same thing about entrepreneurship if they don't know about it. It's not a straight line. Suddenly you're like a big brand. It's a lot of ups and downs. Instead of injuries, you might be dealing with supplier losses. Your ship might get stolen in the high seas. Who knows, right? So all this kind of weird stuff happens. So tell me a little bit more about that. I'd love to understand some of the maybe the greatest challenge that you faced, and particularly on the sustainability aspect, because that's a huge part of your brand and what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's a really big challenge, and we spent a lot of time on it. And honestly, we spent time with 15 different manufacturers to get to a manufacturer that we could use. So that was that process of constantly trying stuff and seeing if it was good enough. And it didn't come up to standard. It was either like not made with sustainable enough materials, or the quality wasn't as good as we needed it to be. So that process over 2 years was just constant knockbacks of like, no, this isn't working, no, this isn't working. So that's probably been the biggest challenge, is finding those right things. And then even a small thing like when you're using a recycled fabric, when you're putting a branding onto that, it reacts differently than if you're using a new fabric. And so the first branding we ever did peeled off, and you're like, okay, this is not what we want from our product at all. But it's about accepting those things and moving on to the next thing. So those are all incredibly challenging. And I know now that we've done that work in supply chain, that's brilliant. And our next bits of challenges will come in marketing and how we tell the story to our customers and continue to tell that story in a way that makes sense to new people. We've had such a great core group that really love the product and really love what we're doing and love the quality of it and love how it makes them look and feel. But as we continue to tell that story more broadly, I think that's going to be quite a big challenge, which is where green story becomes so important. Is it's so useful to be able to quantify what you're doing, and it makes so much more sense to our customers. They can actually see, and they can feel it. They can look at some metrics and know what is happening, as opposed to just trying to have to guess. I mean, a lot of brands that don't have this level of specificity, they might say something like, "Oh, this is consciously made," and consciously made doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
um, like it might actually be consciously made. They might actually have all these sustainability targets, but just saying consciously made doesn't mean anything to the consumer. So it's really important for us to continue to be able to tell a story, and how we tell that to new audiences is probably our next challenge.
And what's great is you've kind of built that core audience really well. You kind of know your customer. You've really built reputation. It reminds me of brands which have done this successfully in the past, such as Pact Apparel in the US, or Pangaya in the UK, which really have built extremely sustainable brands with a core audience and then broken out, right? Really gone mainstream. And that's the kind of phase that you're in. So, what's kind of the vision for you next in the next 1, 3, 5 years? Are there specific goals you're working towards? What's the broader vision that you have for Athletica?
Yeah, so in the next sort of 2 to 3 years, we're here in Australia. We're really working on building that community and expanding it, and then looking at overseas. So America is a really big target for us. We're really close to Asia, and Asia is another market that has started to show a lot of interest in sustainability and in activewear. So that's a really interesting market that we'll continue to keep an eye on. Um, and then Europe is a really interesting market for us as well, because they're bringing in a lot of sustainability legislations and things around products that will be really hard for bigger brands to meet, and a lot easier for us to meet, because we've been building this from the start in order to keep all those things in mind. So sort of keeping an eye on those markets and monitoring them. And then we currently ship globally. We have actual customers that are outside of Australia. We have customers already who are in the US. So keeping an eye on those things. But as you were saying, like, it's really that community is the core of that. So finding new ways to engage with that community is really fun. I'm doing some pop-up events and going to some gyms, and we're doing some classes together, and really getting the time, now that I am back from Olympics, to be able to spend time with that community and talk to them. And this is what it's all about. Like we want to hear product feedback all the time. I want to hear more about my customers' lives. I want to hear where they love wearing it. I want to hear what they're doing with the product in the gym. I want to hear where they're going on holidays. Like it's all about really building that authentic community that are really passionate about fitness and passionate about sustainability.
Fantastic. Um, and one of those things is, as you're moving beyond your core consumer base, you're also addressing shifts in consumer behavior in general, around sustainable fashion. So this is going to evolve, of course, over the next few years. And so I'd love to understand how you are seeing uh, that market evolve, in more of the general consumers, and how, as a brand, you're adapting to that shift that you foresee in the market when it comes to sustainable fashion.
A study from last year that showed that 87% of consumers are looking to buy more sustainable products. So we know that there's a really big appetite for this. The same study showed that it was really hard for consumers to be able to evaluate what was actually sustainable. So this is the place where we really want to play, and showing our cards and sort of laying them out on the table and building that trust with our network, and making sure that they know exactly what we're doing. They can see where our sustainability goals are, and that they're like that desire that they have to shop more sustainably, like we can fulfill that and give them peace of mind that they also know what's going on behind the scenes.
Fantastic. How are you kind of tracking this? Is it mostly research, or are you also talking to your customers just to constantly understand that?
Yeah, so we there's obviously like trend tracking that you can do, and there's a lot of people that study this, like look at all the studies that McKinsey does, and there's ones for US, there's ones for Australia, there's like all these reports out there, you know, but it is also talking to your consumers, and because we have this beautiful core customer base that we interact with quite a lot and get these one-on-one personal conversations, you can really dig down into the why behind the behavior. What someone says in a survey or a study is not always how they're going to behave in real life. So it's sort of from a multiple different sources. So we've got those big like industry reports. Then we can look and see like on our website and see like the behavior in the website. And then we can also talk to the customers that are either repeat customers or first time customers and talk to them and ask them about what their preferences are and understand why they're behaving in the ways that they were.
Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about your personal values as well. So, of course, you've talked a little bit more about it from like a performance point of view as an Olympian, but I'd love to understand also from a sustainability angle, how does the personal values that you have and the lifestyle that you have align with the principles which you champion so much at Athletica around sustainability?
Yeah, I think I live just by the ocean. I'm in the ocean every single day. I grew up in Malawi in Africa. I was around beautiful nature and there's a big lake there, so around that every single day. And um, it's really it's really about protecting all of this for future generations and doing what we can now to start making a difference and taking steps down that road to yeah, I mean, I'm so looking forward to a future where nobody has to say, "Oh, I'm a sustainable brand." Like it's just a given. It's the core of every single brand, and you can't operate unless you are operating in a more sustainable way for the planet. Like that's a great future where we don't even it's just accepted as a given, and we don't even have to talk about it. But we're so far away from that. And really driven to start making that difference. And you look at the stats here in Australia, it's like 30% of clothes are thrown away without even getting sold. That's like an inventory problem. And all of that ends up in landfill. 85% of clothes end up in landfill at the end of their product life. So we also recycle the clothes at the end of their product lives to stop them from ending up in landfill. And the problem is just so big and so multifaceted that as a consumer myself, I've always tried to do things well and like vote with my wallet and do all of those things. But the level that I was seeing here was this was just like an amazing place for impact because the industry is massive. It's a $400 billion global industry. So if we can start to take steps in that way. And you're right, there's other brands like Pangaya that have started to make inroads here, and it's amazing to see them and be like, wow, there's like a following. And but the more of us that are on this journey together, the bigger the impact we can have. And so for me personally, it was a really big driving force where I could see that I could now make a really big impact in this space through growing the company as well as like as a consumer in other ways.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, there's something I like as an aside about the sustainable fashion industry. It is quite supportive. Uh, Most companies see other brands succeed and don't see them as like, here's a rival muscling in. It's more like, okay, here's a colleague where we can work together. So that's amazing. So I'm going to ask you a very hard question to close this out, and something that I get a lot as well. Uh, it's about what kind of advice you'd give to others looking to go through that same path as you, aspiring entrepreneurs who really want to look at sustainability and make it meaningful part of their business. And it's a really hard thing because as you've shown, it's not a linear journey. So if you had to give a few pieces of advice for people who are trying to set up similar brands, or even uh, who have different businesses but are trying to incorporate sustainability into their business, what's kind of the few piece of advice you'd give them?
Yeah, that is a really hard question. And I find advice really difficult to give, but I think like I just say the one thing that I've really learned through this journey is like do not let the overwhelm of like how much there is to go stop you from starting. Because just taking one step towards sustainability, whatever that first step is, you're right, that's not going to change the world. But by the time you've taken 10 steps, you can look back and see how far you've come. And for me, there was definitely, I've had moments where I'm like, oh, this is a lot when we're looking at product and trying to get the product right and trying to get the level of recycled material in it right. And I was like, this is with the end goal where we want to be, where we've got this quality product that's made with recycled materials. Like that is so far away from where we are now, it almost stops you from taking the next step. And I would just say, like, when you think about that old saying of like, how do you eat an elephant? You just eat it one bite at a time. It's the exact same thing for sustainability. So like, how do you tackle this big thing of sustainability and pivoting more towards that? Like, just do the next best thing that you can, and then as soon as you've done that, just do the next best thing again, and really break it down into manageable things that you can do. And yeah, it might take a while, but when you're in it for the right reasons, it's really rewarding and motivating as well.
And I guess it helps a lot, especially in Earthletica's case, that there's such alignment between the founders on the sustainability aspect. You are all focused on it, and that really helps.
Yeah, it really does. I've really enjoyed working with other founders. I've never had co-founders in a business before, so it's amazing to have this core value that sort of drives us, and we're really passionate about it, and everything sort of stems from there. So it really helps bring the team together, and I absolutely love having other people that I can depend on and outsource the things on that I'm really not good at. It's been really brilliant to have such a great team.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Bronte. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and we'll be posting this up very soon.
Amazing. Thanks, Akil. Thanks so much for having me.
All right.